Yuji Naka. You might not know his name, but you definitely know his work, whether you want to or not. Like the guy that directed Human Centipede, or the first person to combine a Legend of Zelda t-shirt with a pair of khaki shorts and some double-knotted hand-me-down Reeboks. During his tenure at Sega, Yuji Naka served as lead programmer for the initial batch of Sonic the Hedgehog games, the iconoclastic 90s platformers that turned your Mario friends into enemies and the rest of your friends into defenders of Archie comics. Naka also oversaw production on cult hits like Phantasy Star Online, Nights into Dreams, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg, and the cultural touchstone that is proudly displayed on every true gamer's shelf, Wii Play Motion. We all know what a Yuji Naka game is because we all have access to Wikipedia, and I literally just told you. So let's break down what a Yuji Naka game does, what that means for upcoming projects like Balan Wonderworld, and why any of that matters at all. In other words, I am here to prove once and for all that this Sonic producer ain't no loser. It's a reference to the song Sonic Reducer by the band Dead Boys. Now, I have taken the liberty of outlining 8 pillars of what I consider to be the most common characteristics of games that have passed through Naka's hands, whether that be as a producer, a programmer, or his rare seat in the director's chair, which we'll talk about more later. Now, obviously, yes, this list is entirely subjective, but so is all criticism, so that's not really my problem. Up first, we have dynamic color palettes. Even from his earliest credited work on Girls Garden for the SG-1000, Yuji Naka has always had an eye for bold color combinations, which would go on to be one of the most distinctive features of the early Sonic games. Dynamic, stylized swatches like this immerse players in the world of the game and serve as wildly evocative window dressing for what is often extremely technical gameplay, and the balance of color in traditional game development allows for higher readability of player actions. But here's the thing, Naka does not care about readability at all. I do not see any evidence to support any other conclusion other than he thinks it fully does not matter. Which brings us to point number 2, style over logic. Literally always. If there's an opportunity to make some stuff hoot and holler all over the screen like Yosemite Sam on a second dose of Moderna, Naka will take it, even if it comes at the expense of visual clarity. Now, keep in mind, this is not meant to diminish Naka's work at all. In fact, it's completely consistent with his background as a programmer. Much in the same way that a director like Robert Zemeckis' background as a technician informs the way he writes scripts and directs films, Yuji Naka, having cut his teeth in the world of programming, informs much of his development style, fashioning game worlds densely packed with problems that have very specific solutions. If a Shigeru Miyamoto game is all about improvisation, a Yuji Naka game is all about memorization. And this point goes hand in hand with our next pillar, timing. It's not just about pushing the right buttons or steering the character in the right direction, it's also about doing all of that at the exact right time, which is something that can only be learned through memorization. Whether it's chaining combos together in Nights into Dreams, or just managing to ricochet through a complex matrix of lightning-fast hazards in a Sonic course, like a spiky blue pinball, Naka loves forcing players to react to prompts with precision. The pinball motif is pretty distinct among Naka's work, even down to the basics of Sonic's design, but it's not uncommon for him to just slap a pinball minigame right in the middle of a course, which brings us to our next pillar, minigames. To be honest, I don't really know what else to say here other than the dude just clearly loves minigames. He'll put them anywhere, and I think that speaks to his perceived desire to situate systems that require players' full, undivided attention. There's a tangible element of surprise to the spontaneous minigame, just ask WarioWare, and really drives home the meticulous means through which players are expected to engage with these worlds. Oh, what worlds, you ask? Why, I'm of course referring to his elaborate, hyper-specific fantasy worlds. You know, I really hope I don't need to explain this one, mainly because I don't think I have the vocabulary to even attempt to explain the aesthetic of Balan Wonderworld. Multiple playable characters. Of all of his most iconic titles, remarkably few of Yuji Naka's greatest hits don't boast multiple playable characters as a core feature. Above all else, Naka has always been frugal with his resources and focused on squeezing as much gameplay as he possibly can out of as few systems as possible. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Clearing Chemical Plant Zone with Sonic might feel like getting waterboarded, but clearing it with Knuckles is simply an uphill battle. And finally, look, we all knew this was coming. It's anthropomorphization. Yuji Naka's a furry, okay? There's no getting around it, okay? I'm not making a value judgment on that one way or another, but the man is simply not subtle about it. Now, before we talk about why any of this matters, I do want to take a second to talk about the significance of Balan Wonderworld, because despite Yuji Naka being an industry legend for over 30 years, this is actually only the second game he's ever directed, the first being 1999's Choo Choo Rocket on the Dreamcast. Choo Choo Rocket had some decidedly rough edges, from its genuinely overwhelming visual presentation to its clunky UI design, but he conceived the game in the first place as being ostensibly a stress tester for the Dreamcast, and it was a total success. Choo Choo Rocket may not have been a perfect game, but it still saw Naka fully deliver on his areas of expertise, particularly in the overall aesthetic and the focus on maximizing the possibilities of the gameplay systems. So, what does all of this mean for Balan Wonderworld? I don't know, dude. I mean, I'm sure it'll have a dedicated core fan base similar to Nights into Dreams, but what I can say with absolute certainty is that Naka's design DNA is all over this thing. While the choice to restrict all action to a single button is... it's interesting. I mean, it definitely speaks to his programming frugality. Plus, it's got the dynamic colors, the hidden mini-games, arguably the most hyper-specific fantasy world, and arguably the most anthropomorphization he's put into any game. So, whether you like it or not, you can't really argue that it's not Naka, because it totally is. And I think that's what makes him and his body of work so compelling in the full context of the gaming icon conversation. When it comes to media figures in really any industry, we often tend to paint them in broad strokes. Hideo Kojima is either a total hack or the single most brilliant mind in games. Kanye West is either dividing the country or saving it. But people tend to feel dissatisfied with the conceit that everyone is kind of a mixed bag, which is weird because that's sort of what makes us human. Do I love every single Yuji Naka project? I mean, honestly, no, but I can't really say that about anybody who makes anything. I mean, yeah, sure, I obviously love me some Sonic, but the game that I love the most by far is Sonic Mania, which was made without his involvement. But the flip side of that is that Sonic Mania absolutely would not have been possible were it not for a young, hungry crop of indie developers reared on Naka's work, clamoring to take the series into uncharted territory without losing sight of what made it work so well in the first place. Try as we might to categorize people based on their creative output, nobody is just one thing. Yuji Naka isn't just a skilled programmer or a hyper-focused perfectionist or a carnal deviant. He's some messy combination of the three and a whole bunch of other traits that I will never know about because I've never met the guy and probably never will, and that's fine. To place people we've never met into neat categories of our own making based on how much we like the stuff they make is to cruelly commodify parasocial relationships and misunderstand the purpose of art and criticism in the first place, which only benefits those aiming to profit off of the work of others. At the end of the day, it's our job as consumers of art and media to take new things in stride, even if those new things are just extremely weird. Because even weird, messy packages can be valuable, and to outright dismiss any one person or product for not saving their respective genre or industry is uninteresting, unproductive, and worst of all, incurious. So, if you're interested in Balan Wonderworld or any of the other projects that have been graced by Yuji Naka's presence over the years, you can head to GameStop.com, and if you want to keep up with me, you can head to YouTube.com/Nugatory videos. But until next time...